There's a stillness beneath everything you think you are, beneath the noise of your day, beneath the stories you tell yourself about who you were yesterday and who you might become tomorrow. There exists a field of pure awareness, silent, luminous, and utterly at peace. Most people spend their entire lives never touching the stillness, not because it is hidden, but because they have forgotten how to stop looking. They search for meaning in the external world, in achievements and relationships and possessions, while the deepest truth of their being waits patiently within, like a candle flame in a quiet room, never demanding attention, simply being. Before we begin, take a breath, feel the air moving in and out. You are not your thoughts, not your past, not even the story that brought you here. If this moment feels quiet, that is not emptiness. It is space. And in that space, you begin to wake up. If you wish to explore this depth of awareness, to live from stillness rather than from noise, subscribe, and let us journey into the now together. What you are about to hear is not a teaching in the conventional sense. It is more like a remembering, a gentle invitation to recognize what has always been present but overlooked. We will explore together 7 environments, 7 conditions of modern life that quietly erode your connection to presence, that pull you away from the now and into the turbulent stream of mental noise. But this is not a warning. It is not meant to create fear or resistance. Rather, it is an opportunity to see clearly, to observe without judgment, and in that observation, to find freedom. The first environment that destroys presence is the environment of constant stimulation, the world of endless information, notifications, and digital demands. You know this world intimately. It is the world where your attention is fragmented into 1,000 pieces, where every moment is interrupted by a sound, a vibration, a message demanding your immediate response. In this environment, the mind becomes like a leaf blown about by the wind, never settling, never resting, always moving toward the next thing, and the next thing, and the next thing after that. But notice what happens in this fragmentation. Notice how the sense of self becomes identified with the activity of thinking, with the constant processing of information. The ego thrives in this environment because it feeds on mental noise. It says, I am busy, therefore I am important. I am connected, therefore I am alive. I am informed, therefore I am intelligent. And yet, beneath all this activity, there is a growing sense of unease, a subtle anxiety that never quite goes away. This is a pain body feeding on the energy of resistance, on the unconscious belief that the present moment is not enough, that you must always be somewhere else, doing something else, becoming someone else. The truth is that presence cannot exist in a state of constant stimulation. Presence requires space, the space between thoughts, the space between actions, the space in which awareness can simply be. When every moment is filled with noise, there is no room for the silence that reveals your true nature. You become like a pond whose surface is constantly disturbed by ripples, never still enough to reflect the sky. And in this disturbance, you lose touch with the depth beneath, the stillness that is always there waiting. So what is the way out? It is not to reject technology or to flee from the modern world. Resistance only creates more suffering. The way out is through awareness, through the simple act of noticing what is happening. When you reach for your phone, pause. Feel the impulse before you act on it. Notice the subtle anxiety, the restlessness, the unconscious belief that something out there will complete you. And in that noticing, a space opens up. You are no longer identified with the compulsion. You are the awareness observing the compulsion. And in that awareness, you are free. The second environment that quietly destroys presence is the environment of comparison, the world where your sense of self is constantly measured against others. This is perhaps one of the most insidious forms of ego identification, because it masquerades as motivation, as a desire to improve and grow. But look closely at what is actually happening. When you compare yourself to another, you are not present. You are lost in thought, in the mental narrative that says, I am not enough as I am. I must be more, have more, achieve more. And this narrative is always accompanied by suffering, whether it takes the form of envy, inadequacy, or the temporary high of feeling superior. The ego loves comparison because it creates a sense of separation, a sense of being a separate self that must compete for worth and recognition. In the environment of social media, This tendency is amplified 1,000-fold. You scroll through images of other people's lives, carefully curated to show only success, beauty, and happiness, and unconsciously you measure your own life against these images. The mind says, they have what I lack. They are what I am not. And in that moment, you have abandoned the present moment entirely. You are living in a mental construct, a story about yourself that has no reality except in thought. But here is the deeper truth that the ego cannot see. You are not your story. You are not the accumulation of achievements or failures, successes or disappointments. You are the awareness in which all these experiences arise and pass away. When you compare yourself to another, you are comparing two mental constructs, two fictional characters in the mind's drama. The real you, the consciousness that is reading these words right now, cannot be compared to anything because it is not a thing. It is the space in which all things appear. To step out of the environment of comparison is to recognize this simple truth. You are already complete, not because you have achieved something or become someone special, but because your essential nature is wholeness itself. The flower does not compare itself to other flowers. It simply blooms. The river does not measure itself against other rivers. It simply flows. And when you rest in presence, in the awareness of this moment as it is, you discover the same effortless completeness. There is nothing to prove, nothing to achieve, nowhere to get to. You're already here, already whole, already home. The third environment that erodes presence is the environment of perpetual planning, the mental space where you are always living the future, always preparing for what comes next. This is the world of goals and strategies, of timelines and deadlines, of the endless pursuit of better tomorrow. And while planning has its place in the practical dimension of life, when it becomes your primary mode of being, you lose touch with the only time that is real. Now, the ego is deeply invested in the future because the future is where it promises to find fulfillment. It says, when I achieve this goal, then I will be happy. When I reach that milestone, then I will be at peace. When I finally become the person I want to be, then my life will truly begin. And so you postpone presence, postpone aliveness, postpone the recognition of the fullness that is already here. You live in a state of continuous becoming, never arriving, never resting, always one step away from the contentment you seek. But the future never comes. What arrives is always the present moment. And if you have trained yourself to overlook the present in favor of an imagined future, you will overlook it again when it arrives. You'll find yourself saying, not yet, not this, not now. When the next thing happens, then I will be present. And so the pattern continues, a hamster wheel of perpetual postponement. And life passes by unlived, unseen, unfelt. There is a profound shift that happens when you realize that the future is a mental construct, a thought form that exists only in the mind. Yes, clock time exists, and you can use it for practical purposes. But psychological time, the time in which the ego lives, is an illusion. The only reality is this moment, this breath, this sensation, this awareness. When you bring your attention fully into the now, the future does not disappear, but it loses its power over you. You can still make plans, but you are no longer enslaved by them. You can still set goals, but you are no longer dependent on them for your sense of self. And here's the paradox. When you are fully present, you become far more effective in the world. Your actions arise from clarity rather than from anxiety. Your decisions come from wisdom rather than from fear. You are no longer trying to escape the present moment through future achievement. You are simply responding to what is. And in that response, there is a natural intelligence, a flow, an ease that the ego-driven mind can never access. The fourth environment that destroys presence is the environment of complaint, the mental and emotional space where you are in constant resistance to what is. This is the voice that says, this should not be happening. This is not fair. This is not what I wanted. It is the voice of the ego arguing with reality, and it is one of the primary sources of human suffering. Complaint is a form of non-acceptance, and non-acceptance is a denial of the present moment. When you complain, whether out loud or silently in your mind, you're saying no to life as it is. You are creating a split between yourself and reality, and in that split, there is conflict, tension, and unhappiness. The ego believes that by complaining, it can change the situation, but in truth, complaint only perpetuates suffering. It keeps you locked in a mental prison of your own making, unable to see the possibilities that exist within the present moment. Notice how complaint feels in the body. There's a contraction, a tightness, a heaviness. This is the energy of resistance, and it is exhausting. It drains your vitality and clouds your perception. When you are caught in complaint, you cannot see clearly because you are looking at life through the filter of judgment and negativity. Everything becomes a problem, an obstacle, a source of frustration. And the more you complain, the more you find to complain about, because the mind seeks evidence to confirm its beliefs. But what happens when you stop complaining? What happens when you accept the present moment as it is, without judgment, without resistance? This does not mean that you become passive, or that you stop taking action to improve your circumstances. Acceptance is not resignation. It is simply the recognition that this moment is as it is, and no amount of mental resistance will change that fact. From this place of acceptance, you can respond to the situation with clarity and intelligence, rather than reacting from a place of negativity and complaint. There is a beautiful teaching in the ancient wisdom traditions that says, whatever the present moment contains, accept it as if you had chosen it. This is not about pretending to like what you do not like. It is about ending the inner war with reality. When you accept what is, you align yourself with the intelligence of life itself. And from that alignment, right action arises naturally. You may still work to change the situation, but you do so from a place of peace rather than from a place of conflict. And this makes all the difference. The fifth environment that quietly erodes presence is the environment of noise, both external and internal. External noise is a constant barrage of sound that fills modern life. Traffic, machinery, voices, music, the hum of electronics. But even more pervasive is internal noise, the ceaseless stream of thoughts, judgments, memories, and fantasies that occupy the mind from morning until night. Most people are so identified with their thinking that they do not even recognize it as noise. They believe they are their thoughts, that the voice in their head is who they are, and so they live in a state of continuous mental chatter, never experiencing the silence that lies beneath. This internal noise creates a barrier between you and the present moment. It is like a veil that obscures reality, filtering everything to the lens of past conditioning and future projection. But you are not your thoughts. You are the awareness that observes thoughts. This is one of the most liberating realizations you can have. When you recognize that you are not the thinker but the witness of thinking, a space opens up. You begin to see thoughts as they are, transient mental events that arise and pass away in the field of consciousness. They have no more substance than clouds passing through the sky. And just as the sky is not affected by the clouds, your true nature is not affected by thoughts. To step out of the environment of noise is to cultivate inner silence. This does not mean that thoughts stop completely, although they may become less frequent and less compulsive. It means that you are no longer lost in thought, no longer identified with the mental noise. You have found the space of awareness, the silence that is always present beneath the noise. And in that silence, you discover a peace that is not dependent on external circumstances, a peace that is your natural state when the mind is not creating turbulence. You can begin to access this silence right now. Simply bring your attention to the present moment. Feel the sensations in your body. Notice the breath moving in and out. Listen to the sounds around you without labeling them or judging them. And in between the sounds, notice the silence. It is always there, the background in which all sound appears. This silence is not empty. It is alive, vibrant, full of presence. It is the essence of who you are. The sixth environment that destroys presence is the environment of identification with roles and labels. The world where you define yourself by what you do, what you have, or what others think of you. This is the ego's primary strategy for creating a sense of self. It says, I am a doctor, a parent, a success, a failure, a victim, a hero. And while these roles may be necessary for functioning in the world, when you identify with them, you lose touch with your true nature. The problem with identification is that it is always fragile. Roles change, circumstances change, opinions change. If your sense of self is based on these external factors, you will live in a state of constant insecurity, always trying to maintain and defend your identity, always afraid of losing what you have or not getting what you want. This is the source of much human suffering. The belief that you are the role you play rather than the consciousness that is aware of the role. Consider for a moment, who are you when you are not thinking about yourself? Who are you before you attach a label or a story to your experience? There's a presence here, an awareness, a sense of being that exists prior to all identification. This is your true self, the self that cannot be threatened or diminished, the self that is always at peace because it is not dependent on anything external for its existence. When you rest in this awareness, you can still play your roles in the world, but you are no longer imprisoned by them. You can be a parent without believing that your worth depends on your children's success. You can be a professional without believing that your identity is defined by your career. You can experience failure without believing that you are a failure. The roles become transparent, and you see through them the reality that lies beneath. The simple fact of being the presence that is always here, always now, always free. This is not a denial of the relative world or the practical dimension of life. It is a recognition that your true identity is not found in the world of form, but in the formless dimension of consciousness. And when you know yourself as consciousness, you bring a quality of presence and authenticity to everything you do. You are no longer acting from a place of fear or need. You are simply expressing the fullness of who you are. The seventh environment that quietly destroys presence is the environment of speed, the relentless pace of modern life that leaves no room for stillness, for reflection, for simply being. This is a world where everything must be done quickly, where efficiency is valued above all else, where slowing down is seen as a weakness or a waste of time. And in this environment, presence becomes impossible, because presence requires a certain quality of spaciousness, a willingness to be with what is without rushing to the next thing. Notice how speed affects your state of consciousness. When you are rushing, your mind is always ahead of your body, always focused on the destination rather than the journey. You are not present to what you are doing. You are simply trying to get it done so you can move on to the next task. And in this state, life becomes a blur, a series of obligations and deadlines, and you lose touch with the aliveness that is available in each moment. The ego loves speed because it creates a sense of urgency, a sense that there is something important that must be accomplished. It says, hurry, there is not enough time. You must do more, achieve more, become more. And this creates a chronic state of stress and anxiety, a feeling that you are always behind, always inadequate, always fail and keep up. But this is an illusion. Time is not running out. The present moment is always here, always available, always sufficient. When you slow down, something remarkable happens. You begin to notice things you've been overlooking. The texture of the air, the quality of light, the subtle sensations in your body, the space between thoughts. You begin to experience life directly rather than through the filter of mental commentary. And in this direct experience, there is a richness, a depth, a beauty that the rushing mind can never perceive. Slowing down does not mean becoming inefficient or unproductive. In fact, when you're fully present to what you are doing, you often accomplish more with less effort because you're not wasting energy on mental resistance and distraction. Your actions become more focused, more intentional, more aligned with what truly matters. You are no longer driven by the compulsive need to do, but by the natural intelligence that arises from presence. So these are the seven environments: constant stimulation, comparison, perpetual planning, complaint, noise, identification with roles, and speed. Each one pulls you away from the present moment. Each one strengthens the illusion of the separate self. Each one creates suffering. But the recognition of these patterns is itself the beginning of freedom. You cannot change what you do not see. And once you see clearly, the change happens naturally, without effort, without struggle. Now let us go deeper into the nature of presence itself, into what it means to be awake in this moment, free from the tyranny of the thinking mind. Presence is not something you achieve or acquire. It is not a state you reach after years of practice or discipline. It is what you are when you stop trying to be something else. It is a natural state of consciousness when it is not obscured by thought, by identification, by resistance. Think of it this way. The sun is always shining, even when clouds cover the sky. The clouds do not diminish the sun. They simply obscure it temporarily. In the same way, presence is always here, always now, always available. It is the light of consciousness itself. The thoughts, Emotions and mental patterns that seem to block presence are like clouds passing through the sky of awareness. They come and go, but the awareness remains, unchanged, untouched, eternally present. Most people spend their lives lost in the clouds, identifying with the passing weather of the mind, never realizing that they are the sky itself. They believe they are their thoughts, their emotions, their personal history, their hopes and fears for the future. And this identification creates a sense of separation, a sense of being a small, isolated self in a vast and often threatening world. This is the root of all psychological suffering. The belief that you are separate from life, separate from others, separate from the source of all being. But you are not separate. You have never been separate. Separation is a thought, an illusion created by the mind. In reality, you are one with all of life, one with the consciousness that animates all things. The sense of being that you feel within yourself is the same sense of being that exists in every living creature, in every blade of grass, in every star in the sky. It is the one consciousness expressing itself in infinite forms, and you are that consciousness, looking out through these eyes, experiencing life through this particular body and mind. When you realize this, when you truly see that you are not a separate self, but the whole of life expressing itself as this individual form, everything changes. The fear that has driven so much of your behavior dissolves because there is nothing to protect, nothing to defend. The loneliness that has haunted you disappears because you recognize that you are never alone, that you are always connected to the source of all being. The search for fulfillment ends because you realize that you are already complete, already whole, already home. This realization does not come through thinking. The mind cannot grasp it because the mind is the very instrument that creates the illusion of separation. The realization comes through presence, through the direct experience of this moment as it is, without the filter of thought. It comes when you stop, when you become still, when you allow yourself to simply be without trying to become anything. And here is where the teacher becomes lived experience, where the words dissolve into silence, and the silence reveals what words can only point to. Close your eyes for a moment, or simply soften your gaze. Bring your attention to the sensation of breathing. Do not try to control the breath. Simply observe it. Feel the air moving in through your nostrils, filling your lungs, and then flowing out again. Notice how the breath happens by itself, without any effort on your part. This is life breathing you. This is the intelligence of the universe expressing itself through this body. Now expand your awareness to include the sensations in your body. Perhaps there is tension somewhere, or perhaps there is relaxation. Do not judge what you find. Simply notice it. Feel the weight of your body, the contact with whatever surface supports you. Feel the temperature of the air on your skin. All of these sensations are happening now, in this moment. They are not memories of the past or anticipations of the future. They are the direct experience of aliveness, of presence. And now notice the awareness itself, the consciousness that is aware of the breath, aware of the sensations, aware of these words. Can you find the edges of this awareness? Can you locate where it begins or ends? You cannot, because awareness has no boundaries. It is not a thing that can be grasped or defined. It is the space in which all experience arises, the light in which all things are seen. And you are that awareness, not the body, not the mind, not the person you think you are, but the consciousness that is aware of all of it. This is the moment of realization, the turning point where perception shifts from identification with form to recognition of the formless. It is not a dramatic event, not a lightning bolt of enlightenment, but a subtle, gentle awakening, like the first light of dawn gradually illuminating the landscape. You begin to see that you have been looking for yourself in all the wrong places, searching for identity in thoughts and roles and achievements, when all along you were the awareness in which the search was taking place. And with this recognition comes a profound sense of relief, of coming home, of finally being able to rest. The struggle ends because there is nothing left to struggle for. The seeking ends because there is nothing left to seek. You are already what you have been looking for. You are already the peace, the love, the wholeness that you have been pursuing through external means. It was never out there. It was always here, always now, always you. But let us not mistake this realization for the end of the journey. In a sense, it is just the beginning. The recognition of your true nature is one thing. Living from that recognition is another. The old patterns of thinking, the habitual identifications. The conditioned responses do not disappear overnight. They continue to arise, sometimes with great force, pulling you back into the dream of separation, back into the world of the ego. This is where practice comes in, not as a means to achieve something, but as a way of remembering, of returning again and again to presence when you notice you've been lost in thought. It is like training a puppy. The puppy wanders off, and you gently bring it back. It wanders off again, and you bring it back again. There is no judgment, no frustration, just a patient, loving return to the present moment. And gradually, over time, presence becomes more stable, more continuous. The gaps between thoughts become longer. The identification with the ego becomes less compelling. You begin to live more and more from the space of awareness, and less from the conditioned patterns of the mind. This is what is sometimes called a flowering of consciousness, the natural unfolding of your true nature, when it is no longer obscured by identification with thought. In this flowering, you discover qualities that were always present but hidden, a deep peace that is not dependent on circumstances, a joy that arises from simply being alive, a love that is not directed at any particular object, but is the very nature of consciousness itself. These are not things you acquire or develop. They are what you are when the ego is no longer running the show, when you're no longer trying to be someone or get somewhere, when you are simply present to what is. And here is another paradox. When you stop seeking happiness, you find it. When you stop trying to be at peace, peace reveals itself. When you stop looking for love outside yourself, you discover that you are love itself. The ego cannot understand this because the ego is built on the premise of lack, on the belief that you are incomplete and must find completion through external means. But presence reveals the truth. You are already complete. Nothing is missing. Nothing needs to be added. You are the fullness of life itself, expressing itself in this moment, in this form. This does not mean that you stop engaging with the world, or that you become passive and indifferent. On the contrary, when you are rooted in presence, your engagement with life becomes more authentic, more creative, more compassionate. You are no longer acting from a place of fear or need, but from a place of wholeness and abundance. Your actions arise naturally from the situation, without the interference of the ego's agenda. And because there is no ego trying to protect itself or enhance itself, there is a spontaneity, a freshness, a quality of flow that makes life feel effortless. Imagine a river flowing down a mountain. It does not struggle or strain. It simply follows the path of least resistance, moving around obstacles, adapting to the terrain, always flowing, always moving, always at peace with what is. This is how life moves through you when you are in a state of presence. There is no resistance, no conflict, no inner division. You are aligned with the intelligence of life itself, and that intelligence knows exactly what to do in each moment. But the ego resists this flow. It wants to control, to plan, to make things happen according to its agenda. And in this resistance, there is friction, there is struggle, there is suffering. The ego believes that it must be in charge, that without its constant vigilance and effort, everything will fall apart. But this is an illusion. Life has been unfolding for billions of years without the ego's help. The sun rises and sets. The seasons change. The flowers bloom, all without any effort or control. And when you surrender to this natural flow, when you trust the intelligence of life, you discover that you are supported, that you are held, that you are part of a vast and benevolent unfolding. Surrender is perhaps one of the most misunderstood concepts in spiritual teaching. It does not mean giving up or becoming a victim. It means accepting what is without resistance, without judgment. It means saying yes to life as it unfolds, even when it does not match your preferences or expectations. This is not passive resignation. It is active acceptance, a conscious choice to align yourself with reality rather than fighting against it. When you surrender, you do not lose anything. You gain everything. You gain peace, clarity, freedom. You are no longer at war with life. You are no longer exhausting yourself trying to make reality conform to your mental image of how it should be. You are simply here, present, open, available to whatever arises. And from this openness, right action emerges naturally. You respond to situations with wisdom and compassion rather than reacting from fear and conditioning. Let's explore what this looks like in practical terms. Imagine you are stuck in traffic. The ego's response is frustration, impatience, complaint. This should not be happening. I am going to be late. This is terrible. And in this resistance, you create suffering for yourself. The traffic does not change, but you have added a layer of mental and emotional pain to the situation. Now imagine the same situation approached from presence. You notice the frustration arising, but you do not identify with it. You accept that you are in traffic, that this is a reality of this moment. And in that acceptance, the frustration loses its power. You might still take practical action, like call and let someone know you will be late, but you do so from a place of calm rather than from a place of stress. This is the difference between reacting and responding. Reacting is unconscious, automatic, driven by conditioning, and the egos need to resist what is. Responding is conscious, intentional, arising from presence and awareness. When you respond rather than react, you bring a quality of intelligence and grace to every situation. You're no longer a victim of circumstances. You are a conscious participant in life, able to meet whatever arises with equanimity and wisdom. And this brings us to the question of suffering. Why do human beings suffer so much? Not the physical pain that is part of life, but the psychological suffering, the anxiety, the depression, the sense of meaninglessness that afflicts so many people. The answer is simple. Suffering arises from resistance to what is. It arises from belief that the present moment is not enough, that something is wrong, that life should be different than it is. The ego is the source of this resistance. It is constantly comparing the present moment to some mental image of how things should be, and finding the present moment lacking. It says, I should be happier, more successful, more loved. My life should be easier, more fulfilling, more meaningful. And in this constant comparison, there is suffering. The present moment is rejected in favor of an imagined future or an idealized past, and you're left feeling dissatisfied, incomplete, always seeking but never finding. But what if you stop resisting? What if you accepted this moment exactly as it is, without trying to change it or escape from it? This does not mean that you stop taking action to improve your circumstances. It means that you stop creating inner conflict through resistance. You accept what is, and from that acceptance, you take whatever action is appropriate. And the action that arises from acceptance is far more effective than the action that arises from resistance, because it is not contaminated by negativity and fear. There's a profound teaching in the ancient wisdom traditions that says, pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional. Pain is part of the human experience. The body gets sick, relationships end, loved ones die. These are facts of life, and they bring pain. But suffering is what the mind adds to pain through resistance, through the story it tells about the pain, through the belief that it should not be happening. When you accept pain without resistance, it is still there, but the suffering dissolves. You are able to be with the pain, to feel it fully without the added layer of mental anguish. This is the power of presence. It transforms your relationship to experience. You are no longer at the mercy of circumstances. You are no longer dependent on external conditions for your inner state. You have found the place within yourself that is untouched by the ups and downs of life, the place of deep peace and stillness that is always available, no matter what is happening on the surface. And from this place, you can meet life with an open heart. You can experience joy without clinging to it, knowing that it will pass. You can experience sorrow without being destroyed by it, knowing that it too will pass. You can love without fear of loss, because you know that your true nature is love itself, and that love cannot be lost or diminished. You are no longer trying to hold on to the good and push away the bad. You are simply present to what is, allowing life to move through you like the breath, in and out, always changing, always flowing, always now. This is the art of living consciously, the art of being fully alive in each moment. It is not something you learn from a book or a teacher, although books and teachers can point the way. It is something you discover through your own direct experience, through your own willingness to be present, to be still, to be aware. And the discovery is always fresh, always new, because the present moment is never the same. Each moment is a unique expression of life, a unique opportunity to be awake, to be conscious, to be free. So, how do you cultivate this presence in your daily life? How do you remember to be aware when the pull of the mind is so strong, when the habits of a lifetime are so deeply ingrained? The answer is simple, though not always easy. You bring your attention to the present moment, again and again and again. You use whatever is happening right now as a doorway into presence. If you are washing dishes, feel the warm water on your hands. Notice the texture of the soap. Hear the sound of the water running. If you are walking, feel your feet touching the ground. Notice the movement of your body. Sense the air on your skin. If you are talking to someone, listen fully, without planning what you will say next, without judging or analyzing. Simply be present to the person in front of you, to the words being spoken, to the space between the words. Every activity can become a meditation, a practice of presence, when you bring your full attention to it. The key is to do one thing at a time, to give yourself fully to whatever you are doing, rather than doing it mechanically while your mind is somewhere else. This is not about being perfect or never getting distracted. It is about noticing when you have been distracted and gently bringing your attention back to the present moment. Each time you do this, you strengthen the muscle of awareness. You train yourself to live from presence rather than from the conditioned patterns of the mind. And you can use the body as an anchor to the present moment. The body is always here, always now. It cannot be anywhere else. When you feel yourself getting lost in thought, bring your attention to the sensations in your body. Feel the aliveness, the energy field that animates this physical form. This is not a mental exercise. It is a direct experience of presence, of the consciousness that you are. The breath is another powerful anchor. You can return the breath at any moment, no matter where you are or what you are doing. Simply notice the breath moving in and out, and in that noticing, you are present. You are no longer lost in the past or the future. You are here now, alive, aware. And in this simple act of breathing consciously, you touch the eternal, the timeless dimension of your being. There's also great value in creating spaces of stillness in your day, moments where you do nothing, where you simply sit or stand or lie down and allow yourself to be. In our culture, this is often seen as laziness or a waste of time, but it is actually one of the most important things you can do. In stillness, the mind begins to settle. The constant chatter quiets down. And in that quietness, you can hear the deeper voice of your being, the wisdom that is always present but usually drowned out by mental noise. You do not need to go to a monastery or retreat center to find stillness. You can find it right where you are in the midst of your daily life. Even 5 minutes of conscious stillness can make a profound difference. Sit quietly, close your eyes if you wish, and simply be. Do not try to achieve anything or get anywhere. Just be present to what is, to the sensations in your body, to the sounds around you, to the space of awareness itself. And if thoughts arise, which they will, simply notice them and let them pass, like clouds drifting across the sky. This practice of stillness is not separate from your life. It is the foundation of your life. It is the ground from which all your actions arise. When you are rooted in stillness, in presence, everything you do is infused with the quality of consciousness, of awareness, of love. You bring light into the world simply by being present, by being awake, by being yourself. And this brings us to the question of relationships. How does presence affect the way you relate to others? When you are present, you are able to truly see the other person, not as a projection of your mind, not as a means to fulfill your needs, but as a conscious being, as an expression of the same life that you are. This is the foundation of true connection, of genuine intimacy. You are no longer relating from ego to ego, from need to need, but from presence to presence, from being to being. Most relationships are unconscious. They are based on mutual need, on the ego's desire to find completion through another person. You make me happy. You give me what I lack. You complete me. But this is not love. This is dependency. And dependency always leads to suffering, because no other person can give you what you're looking for. What you are looking for is already within you. It is your own presence, your own wholeness, your own completeness. When you find this within yourself, your relationships transform. You no longer need the other person to make you happy or to validate your existence. You're already happy, already whole. And from this wholeness, you can truly give, truly love, truly connect. You can appreciate the other person for who they are, rather than for what they can give you. You can allow them to be themselves, rather than try and change them to fit your image of how they should be. This is the difference between love and attachment. Attachment is based on need and fear. It says, I need you to be a certain way so that I can be okay. Love is based on presence and freedom. It says, I see you as you are and I honor your being. Attachment creates bondage. Love creates freedom. Attachment is possessive. Love is spacious. Attachment is conditional. Love is unconditional. And when you love from presence, you discover that love is not something you do. It is what you are. It is the very nature of consciousness itself. When the ego is not in the way, when you're not trying to get something or protect something, love flows naturally, effortlessly, like water from a spring. It is not directed at any particular person or thing. It is simply the radiance of your being, touching everything and everyone you encounter. This is a gift you give the world when you are present. The gift of your true self, the gift of consciousness, the gift of love. You do not need to do anything special or extraordinary. You simply need to be who you are, to live from presence rather than from the ego. And in that simple act of being present, you become a light in the world, a source of peace and healing for all those you encounter. But let us be clear, this is not about becoming a saint or a perfect person. The ego loves the idea of spiritual perfection because it gives it something to strive for, something to achieve. But presence is not about perfection. It is about authenticity, about being real, about accepting yourself as you are, with all your imperfections and limitations. When you accept yourself, you stop trying to be someone else. You stop comparing yourself to others. You stop judging yourself as not good enough. And in that acceptance, you find peace. This self-acceptance is not self-indulgence or complacency. It is not an excuse to avoid growth or change. It is simply the recognition that you're already whole, already complete, already worthy of love. Not because of what you have achieved or who you have become, but because of what you are, consciousness itself, life itself, being itself. And from this recognition, true growth becomes possible, not as a means to fix yourself or become someone better, but as a natural expression of your being, like a flower unfolding its petals toward the sun. So we return to where we began, to the simple recognition that presence is always here, always available, always waiting beneath the noise of the mind. The 7 environments we explored are not enemies to be fought or obstacles to be overcome. They are simply conditions that make it easy to forget presence, to lose yourself in the dream of the ego. But now that you see them clearly, you can choose differently. You can choose presence over distraction, acceptance over resistance, being over becoming. And this choice is not made once and for all. It is made moment by moment, breath by breath, throughout your day. Each moment is a new opportunity to wake up, to be present, to be free. You will forget. You will get lost in thought. You will identify with the ego. This is part of the human experience. But each time you notice that you have forgotten, you can choose to remember. Each time you notice that you're lost in thought, you can choose to return to presence. And each time you make this choice, you strengthen your capacity for awareness. You deepen your connection to your true nature. Think of it as a homecoming, a return to yourself after a long journey through the wilderness of the mind. You have been searching for so long, looking for happiness, for peace, for love, for meaning. And all along, what you were searching for was here, within you, as you waiting patiently for you to stop searching and simply be. This is the great irony of the spiritual journey. The destination is the starting point. You are already home. You have never left. You have only forgotten, and now you are remembering. And in this remembering, there is a joy that is unlike any other joy you have known. It is not the joy that comes from getting what you want or achieving a goal. It is the joy of simply being alive, of being conscious, of being present to the miracle of existence. It is the joy of a child seeing the world for the first time, fresh and new and full of wonder. This joy is your birthright. It is what you are when you are not lost in the mind, when you are not identified with the ego, when you are simply here, now, awake. So let us rest here for a moment, in this space of presence, in this field of awareness. Let the words fade into the background. Let the thoughts settle like dust after a storm. And simply be. Feel the aliveness in your body. Notice the breath moving in and out. Sense the space around you, the silence that holds all sound. This is it. This is the moment. This is life. Happening now, always now, eternally now. There is nowhere else to go, nothing else to do, no one else to become. You are already here. You are already whole. You are already free. The only question is, will you recognize it? Will you allow yourself to rest in this recognition? Or will you continue to chase after the illusions of the mind, the promises of the ego, the dreams of a better tomorrow? The choice is yours, and it is made in this moment, not in some future moment when you are more ready, more prepared, more evolved. Now, this moment, this breath, this awareness, this is where freedom is found. This is where peace resides. This is where love lives. Not in the past, not in the future, but here in eternal now. And as you go about your day, as you engage with the world, as you face the challenges and opportunities that life presents, remember this. You are not alone. You are never alone. You are held by the same consciousness that holds the stars in the sky, that moves the tides, that causes the flowers to bloom. You are an expression of that consciousness, a unique and precious manifestation of the infinite. And when you remember this, when you live from this knowing, everything changes. The problems do not disappear. The challenges do not vanish. But your relationship to them transforms. You are no longer overwhelmed by them because you are no longer identified with them. You see them as passing phenomena, as waves on the surface of the ocean, while you rest in the depths, in the stillness that is never disturbed. And from this stillness, you respond to life with wisdom, with compassion, with grace. This is a promise of presence. Not a life without difficulties, but a life lived from a place of inner peace, regardless of external circumstances. Not a life without pain, but a life without unnecessary suffering. Not a life without challenges, but a life where challenges are met with awareness and acceptance rather than with resistance and fear. And so we come to understand that the spiritual journey is not about escaping from life, but about fully embracing it. It is not about transcending the world, but about seeing the world clearly without the distortions of the ego. It is not about becoming someone special, but about recognizing the extraordinary in the ordinary, the sacred in the mundane, the infinite in the finite. Every moment is a doorway to the divine. Every breath is a prayer. Every action, when done with presence, is a meditation. You do not need to go to a temple or a church to find God. You do not need to follow a particular religion or practice a specific technique. You simply need to be present, to be aware, to be awake. And in that awakeness, you discover that the divine is not separate from you. It is what you are. It is a consciousness that looks through your eyes, that beats your heart, that breathes your breath. This is the ultimate realization, the recognition that there is no separation between you and the source of all being. You are not a drop in the ocean. You are the ocean in a drop. You are not a wave separate from the sea. You are the sea expressing itself as a wave. And when you know this, when you truly see this, all seeking ends, all striving ceases, all fear dissolves. You are home, but even this realization is not the end. It is a beginning, a new way of being in the world. You still have a life to live, a body to care for, relationships to nurture, work to do. But now you do it all from a different place, from the place of presence, from the place of awareness, from the place of love, and everything you touch is transformed by this presence. You become a blessing to the world, not through what you do, but through what you are. So let us speak now about the practical integration of presence into daily life, about how to maintain this awareness in the midst of activity, in the midst of relationships, in the midst of the inevitable ups and downs of human existence. Because it is one thing to feel present in a moment of stillness, in a moment of meditation, and quite another to remain present when life becomes challenging, when emotions are strong, when the mind is reactive. The key is to use everything as a reminder, as a bell of mindfulness that calls you back to presence. When you feel stress arising, let that be a signal to bring your attention to the breath, to the body, to the present moment. When you notice yourself complaining, let that be a reminder to practice acceptance. When you catch yourself comparing, Let that be an invitation to return to your own being, to your own completeness. Every challenge, every difficulty, every moment of unconsciousness is an opportunity to wake up, to choose presence over identification with the ego, and be gentle with yourself in this process. The ego is very good at turning the spiritual journey into another form of self-judgment, another way to feel inadequate. It says, I should be more present. I should be more aware. I should be more enlightened. But this is just the ego in disguise, creating a new identity, a new story, a new source of suffering. True presence is not about should. It is about what is. It is about accepting yourself exactly as you are in this moment, with all your imperfections, all your struggles, all your humanity. When you accept yourself, you stop fighting with yourself. You stop trying to be someone you are not. And in that acceptance, a natural transformation begins to happen. Not because you're trying to change, but because you have stopped resisting what is. The flower does not try to bloom. It simply opens when the conditions are right. And when you stop resisting, when you accept yourself and your life as it is, you create the conditions for your own flowering, for the natural unfolding of your consciousness. And let us also speak about the role of silence in this journey. Silence is not just the absence of sound. It is a quality of consciousness, a depth of being that is always present beneath the noise of the mind. When you touch this silence, even for a moment, you touch the source of all creativity, all wisdom, all peace. This is why the great spiritual teachers throughout history have emphasized the importance of silence, of stillness, of simply being. In our modern world, silence has become rare. We fill every moment with sound, with activity, with stimulation. We are afraid of silence because in silence, we might have to face ourselves, to feel the emotions we have been avoiding, to see the truth we have been denying. But silence is not something to fear. It is something to embrace, to welcome, to rest in. It is a space in which healing happens, in which insight arises, in which presence reveals itself. You can cultivate silence in many ways. You can sit in meditation, allowing the mind to settle and the silence to emerge. You can spend time in nature, away from the noise of civilization, listening to the sound of the earth, the wind, the water, the birds. You can create moments of silence in your day, turning off the music, the television, the phone, and simply being with yourself. And you can learn to access the inner silence even in the midst of noise by bringing your attention to the space between sounds, to the stillness that underlies all activity. This inner silence is your refuge, your sanctuary, your home. It is always available, no matter where you are or what is happening around you. When the world becomes too much, when the mind becomes too loud, when the emotions become too intense, you can always return to the silence, to the stillness, to this presence. And in that return, you find peace, you find clarity, you find yourself. Now, let us explore the relationship between presence and creativity. When you are present, when you are not lost in thought, when you are not identified with the ego, you become a channel for something greater than yourself. Ideas arise spontaneously. Solutions appear effortlessly. Actions flow naturally. This is because you are no longer blocking the creative intelligence of life with your mental noise, with your fears and doubts and limiting beliefs. The ego believes that it is the source of creativity, that it must figure everything out, that it must be in control. But true creativity does not come from the ego. It comes from the space of presence, from the silence, from the connection to the source. When you are present, you are open, receptive, available. You are like an empty vessel that can be filled, like a clear channel through which life can flow. This is why artists, musicians, writers, and inventors often speak of being in a state of flow, of losing themselves in their work, of feeling as if something is working through them rather than them doing the work. This is presence in action. This is what happens when the ego steps aside and allows the creative intelligence of life to express itself. And this is available to everyone, not just to artists and creators, but to anyone who is willing to be present, to be open, to be a channel for life. You do not need to be special or talented to access this creativity. You simply need to be present. And when you are present, everything you do becomes creative, becomes an expression of consciousness, becomes a work of art. Cooking a meal, cleaning a room, having conversation, walking in nature, all of these can be creative acts when done with presence, when done with awareness, when done with love. And this brings us to the question of purpose. Many people are searching for their purpose, for the reason they are here, for the meaning of their life. And the ego loves this search because it gives it something to pursue, something to achieve. But the truth is that your purpose is not something you find in the future. It is not a goal to be reached or a destination to be arrived at. Your purpose is to be present, to be aware, to be conscious. Everything else flows from this. When you are present, you naturally do what needs to be done. You naturally respond to the needs of the moment. You naturally express your unique gifts and talents. You do not need to figure it out or plan it out. It happens by itself, through you as you. This is the intelligence of life expressing itself through your particular form, through your particular circumstances, through your particular moment in time. So stop searching for your purpose and start being present. Stop trying to figure out what you should do with your life and start paying attention to what life is asking of you right now, in this moment. The answer is always here, always now, always available. But you can only see it when you are present, when you are not lost in the mental noise of seeking and striving and becoming. And as you live from presence, as you allow life to move through you, you'll find that you are exactly where you need to be, doing exactly what you need to do. There's a rightness to it, a sense of alignment, a feeling of being in the flow. This does not mean that everything will be easy or that you will never face challenges. It means that you will meet whatever arises with presence, with awareness, with acceptance. And in that meeting, you will discover that you have everything you need, that you are everything you need, that you are enough. Let us also touch upon the relationship between presence and gratitude. When you are present, gratitude arises naturally. You begin to appreciate the simple things, the warmth of the sun, the taste of food, the sound of laughter, the feeling of being alive. These are not things you take for granted when you are present. They are miracles, each one a gift, each one an expression of the infinite creativity and generosity of life. The ego is never grateful because it is always focused on what is lacking, on what is missing, on what needs to be different. It says, I will be grateful when I have more, when I achieve more, when I become more. But this is a trap. Gratitude is not something you feel after you get what you want. It is something you feel when you are present to what is, when you recognize the abundance that is already here, when you see perfection in the imperfection, the beauty in the ordinary, the sacred in the mundane. And gratitude is not just a feeling. It is a way of being, a quality of consciousness that transforms your experience of life. When you are grateful, you are in harmony with life. You are saying yes to what is. You are acknowledging the gift of existence. And in that acknowledgement, you open yourself to receive even more, not because you need more, but because you are available, because you are receptive, because you are aligned with the flow of life. So practice gratitude, not as a technique or a strategy, but as a natural expression of presence. Notice the good that is already here. Appreciate the people in your life. Give thanks for the challenges that help you grow. And most of all, be grateful for this moment, for this breath, for this awareness. This is the greatest gift of all, the gift of being alive, of being conscious, of being present. And now, as we move toward the completion of this journey, let us reflect on what has been shared, not as a collection of ideas to be remembered, but as a living truth to be experienced. The words you have heard are not the teaching. They are pointers, fingers pointing at the moon. The teaching is the moon itself, the reality that the words point to. And that reality is here, now, in this moment, in your own direct experience. You do not need to believe anything that has been said. You do not need to adopt a new philosophy or follow a new system. You simply need to look for yourself, to see for yourself, to experience for yourself. Is it true that you are not your thoughts? Look and see. Is it true that presence is always available? Look and see. Is it true that you are already whole and complete? Look and see. The truth is not something you learn from someone else. It is something you discover within yourself. And the discovery is always fresh, always immediate, always now. It is not a memory of a past experience or an anticipation of a future realization. It is the living reality of this moment, the awareness that is reading these words, the consciousness that is aware of being aware. And this awareness is not personal. It is not yours or mine. It is the one consciousness that animates all life, that looks through all eyes, that beats in all hearts. When you recognize this, when you see that the same awareness that is in you is in everyone and everything, separation dissolves. You see yourself in others. You see others in yourself. You see that we are all expressions of the one life, the one consciousness, the one being. This is a foundation of compassion, of true love, of genuine connection. When you see yourself in another, how can you harm them? When you recognize that their suffering is your suffering, how can you be indifferent? When you know that their joy is your joy, how can you not celebrate with them? This is a natural response of presence, of awareness, of consciousness recognizing itself in all forms. And so the spiritual journey is not about becoming more spiritual or more enlightened. It is about becoming more human, more real, more authentic. It is about stripping away the false layers of identity, the masks and roles and pretenses, and revealing the simple truth of what you are: consciousness, awareness, presence, being. And in that revelation, you discover that you are not separate from life. You are life itself, expressing itself as this unique individual, in this unique moment, in this unique way. So live from this knowing. Walk through the world as presence, as awareness, as love. Let your life be a testament to the truth that you have discovered, not through words or teachings, but through your very being. And know that every moment is an opportunity to be present, to be awake, to be free. You do not need to wait for the perfect conditions or the right circumstances. You can be present right now, right here, right where you are. The 7 environments we explored at the beginning: constant stimulation, comparison, perpetual planning, complaint, noise, identification with roles, and speed, are still there. They have not disappeared. But now you see them clearly. You understand how they pull you away from presence. And in that understanding, you have a choice. You can continue to be swept along by these forces, or you can choose presence. You can choose awareness. You can choose to be awake. And the choice is made not once, but continuously, moment by moment, breath by breath. Each moment is a new beginning, a fresh opportunity to wake up. You will forget. You will get lost. You will identify with the ego. This is inevitable. But each time you remember, each time you return to presence, you strengthen your capacity for awareness. You deepen your connection to your true nature. You become more established in the peace that passes all understanding. And gradually, over time, presence becomes your natural state. Not because you have achieved something or become someone special, but because you have stopped resisting what is. You have stopped fighting with life. You have stopped trying to be someone you are not. You have simply allowed yourself to be, to rest in the awareness that you are, to live from the presence that is always here. This is a flowering of consciousness, the awakening of humanity, the evolution of our species from unconsciousness to consciousness, from ego to presence, from separation to unity. And it begins with you, with your willingness to be present, to be aware, to be awake. You are not just transforming your own life. You are contributing to the transformation of the collective consciousness, to the awakening of humanity as a whole. Every moment of presence, every act of awareness, every choice for consciousness over unconsciousness sends ripples out into the world. You become a light in the darkness, a beacon of hope, a living example of what is possible when a human being lives from presence rather than from the ego. And others will feel this. They may not understand it intellectually, but they will sense it. They will feel the peace, the love, the authenticity that radiates from you. And they will be inspired to find it within themselves. So do not underestimate the power of your presence. Do not think that you are just one person, and that your awakening does not matter. It matters more than you can possibly imagine. You are not separate from the whole. You are an integral part of the whole. And when you awaken, the whole awakens a little bit more. When you choose presence, you make it easier for others to choose presence. When you live from love, you increase the amount of love in the world. This is your contribution, your gift, your purpose. Not to do something great or achieve something extraordinary, but simply to be present, to be aware, to be awake. And from this presence, everything else flows naturally. Your actions become more aligned with truth. Your words become more authentic. Your relationships become more genuine. Your life becomes an expression of consciousness, a manifestation of love, a celebration of being. And so we come full circle, back to the beginning, back to the simple recognition that presence is always here, always available, always waiting. The journey has not taken us anywhere. It has simply revealed what was always here, what has always been here, what will always be here. You are that presence. You are that awareness. You are that consciousness, not as a concept or an idea, but as a living reality, as the very essence of who you are. Take a moment now to feel this, not to think about it, but to feel it. Feel the aliveness in your body. Feel the awareness that is aware of these words. Feel the presence that is always here, always now, always you. This is not something you need to create or achieve. It is what you are when you stop trying to be something else. It is your natural state, your true nature, your deepest reality. And now, the words fade, but the silence remains. If you felt the stillness within this message, stay. Subscribe, not to follow, but to remember again and again that presence is always here, waiting beneath every thought. The true teaching is not in the words you just heard, but in the space between them. Let the silence speak now. Let the presence reveal itself. Let the awareness that you are shine forth, unobscured by thought, undiminished by doubt, untouched by fear. You are home. You have always been home. You have never left home. You have only forgotten, and now you are remembering. And in this remembering, there is peace, not the peace that comes from the absence of conflict, but the peace that is your essential nature, the peace that is always present beneath the surface turbulence of life. This peace is not dependent on circumstances. It is not affected by what happens or does not happen. It is the ground of your being, the foundation of your existence, the truth of who you are. Rest in this peace. Abide in this presence. Live from this awareness. And know that you are never alone, never separate, never lost. You are held by the same intelligence that holds the stars in the sky, that moves the planets in their orbits, that causes the seasons to change and the flowers to bloom. You are an expression of that intelligence, a manifestation of that love, a celebration of that being. And so the journey continues, not as a search for something you do not have, but as a deepening recognition of what you have always been. Each moment is an invitation to be present. Each breath is an opportunity to be aware. Each experience is a chance to be awake. And in this continuous awakening, you discover that life is not a problem to be solved, but a mystery to be lived, a gift to be received, a dance to be enjoyed. Dance with life. Flow with life. Be life. This is the invitation. This is the teaching. This is the truth. And it is always here, always now, always available. You need only to stop, to be still, to be present. And in that presence, you'll find everything you've been searching for. Peace, love, joy, freedom, wholeness, completeness, home. The words end here, but the silence continues. The teaching concludes, but the truth remains. The journey appears to finish, but the awakening goes on. For presence is not a destination. It is the journey itself. It is the path and the goal, the question and the answer, the seeker and the sought. It is what you are, what you have always been, what you will always be. So be present. Be aware. Be awake. And in that being, discover the infinite depth, the boundless love, the eternal peace that is your true nature. This is not a promise of the future. It is a reality available now, in this moment, in this breath, in this awareness. You are that reality. You are that presence. You are that consciousness. And with this recognition, we rest, not in the sense of ending, but in the sense of arriving, of coming home, of finally being able to stop searching and simply be. The stillness welcomes you. The silence embraces you. The presence that you are recognizes itself in these words, in this moment, in this eternal now. Be still, be silent, be present, and know that you are home.